Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Inside Thrustmaster Esports. Today is a very exciting day for me as we get to chat with one of the most talented up-and-coming sim racers that we've seen. Not only a Kazakhstan champion for karting, but also have a great passion for all things sim racing, and also can provide us some unique insight as a woman in the world of sim racing. It is, of course, none other than the wonderful Love 46, or as some of you may know her, Lyubov. Lyubov, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. So excited to show myself and tell a bit about myself.
Awesome. Well, yes, we've got plenty to talk about. Obviously, some people have seen our other interviews that we've done, and I'm really excited for the interview today. So I guess to start, it'd be really good to know about your history with sim racing. So my first question to you is, when did you start sim racing, and can you talk to me a little bit about that?
I started racing and streaming during the lockdown time in 2020. I used to spend my breaks in sim racing centers, so I worked in the sim racing industry before, and I play some Assetto Corsa. Uh, had the luck to have an old PC and low-end wheel and pedals at my home and started to stream and do iRacing. Hopefully, we really fast upgrade my equipment. And so, yeah, that's how my way started in racing and streaming. So we get a Twitch partner in 2 months and I found amazing community. And I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Amazing. Yes, I've followed your streaming before, and it's amazing content, and I think a lot of people really enjoy it. My question for you is that obviously a lot of people who get into sim racing want to do it competitively. You know, they want to compete in competitions. You obviously started, you did a little bit of streaming and kind of content creation. So was sim racing for you always about having fun, or did you also have the dream to become professional with it as well?
I always been a competitor because I started from 9 years old from karting and I won 4 times championship of Kazakhstan. Then I moved to open wheelers. So I always was a professional in racing and I started some racing in the same way.
Amazing. And yeah, let's talk about your history. Obviously, you've done some real life racing as well as virtual, which is very unique. There's not a lot of people who've done that. What was the experience like for you going from real life racing to sim racing? Did you notice any major differences?
I didn't notice so many differences. Mainly all my mistakes, which I had in real life, I also made them in sim racing as well. And this is real cool because you can improve through the sim racing. You can improve your driving and also move the skills to the real life as well. So
I agree.
yeah,
So
my transition from in real life racing to sim racing went smooth and fast.
no, that's amazing. I spoke to John Armstrong, who's also part of the Thrustmaster team, and he does a lot of rally racing. And he said for him, just the ability to practice and do loads of laps made a huge benefit as well. Obviously, you drove a lot of open wheelers, and as you're streaming and playing a lot of games, you play a lot of iRacing and Assetto Corsa. Do you still prefer driving open wheel style cars? Do you prefer GT cars? What's your preferred style of racing?
Well, I really like to do from time to time open wheelers, but sometimes it's so dangerous. So people just trying to jump and use the last opportunity, like this is their last race in their life. So I prefer now to race GT3s. Sometimes I'm doing some prototypes. I really like endurance racing, so I'm doing some races with teams. We had in January Virtual Le Mans with LMP2, and also I did Daytona 24 with LMDH car. That was awesome experience for me.
No, that's amazing, and we'll talk about that a bit later on because I've got a lot of questions about that. But my question for you now is obviously a lot of people, and I get asked this a lot. I'm sure you're probably the same. People ask me, I want to get involved in sim racing, but I'm not sure where to start. Obviously, with iRacing, you have like the rookie class for the MX5s or things like this. But what would your advice be to people who are wanting to get into sim racing? Where would you suggest they start?
Well, I can suggest them to start from my racing because we got here as a clear system with licenses. So you starting from rookie, you starting with MX5 or Formula B. Then you go and gaining the safety rating, and you jump into the D class, and then you can decide where to go to open wheelers, or you can go to the GT class. Also, you can race ovals, you can race dirt oval, dirt road, so whatever you want. I think that iRacing is really good, has good system to start in sim racing. So I highly recommend this one.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you're right. With the license system, it does make a big difference, and also means that you can take your time trying different cars and tracks. So look, obviously you started, like you said, you come from the real world. You do a bit of sim racing. You realize you're quite competitive. You take it a bit more seriously. And then you're competing, like you said, in championships like Le Mans Virtual and the Daytona 24 Hours. Can you talk to me a little bit about your training routine? What sort of practice do you do when you get into the simulator?
Well, usually if I'm missing the new track, I'm trying to watch the guide of it, learn the breaking points, learn enter and exit points. Then I'm trying some laps, compare my data with a reference lap if I got one. Um, and then I'm trying to improve, correct my mistakes, and doing more consistent lap times after that. So that's usually like this for me.
Yeah, amazing. I watched a video. I think it was from last year, but it was you were giving a lap guide at Interlagos on F1 2022, and yeah, it was interesting to see you kind of talking about the position of the car and obviously elements that you've learned from your real life as well as your virtual sessions. It was interesting. I was talking to Kamil Pawlowski. Obviously, he's done a lot of sim racing as well, and what he said is that consistency is almost more important than just being fast, because it's easy to do a really good qualifying time, but in a race, especially a longer endurance race, you need to make sure that you're being consistent with your braking points and turning and things. Do you feel it's the same? Do you think consistency is also important in sim racing?
Yeah, I think consistency is the main thing in sim racing because you can improve. Sometimes you're limited with time, and you just so your goal is to be consistent, to go with the rhythm which you got. So don't try to overdrive the car. Don't try to like overdrive yourself. Yeah, in sim racing. So I think consistency is the most important thing. So you just on the race, you have to show what you did in practice and be consistent as well.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. Completely agree. So obviously you've got a lot of amazing results, both in the real and virtual worlds. I'd love to know though, what is your favorite memory of racing? It can be either real or virtual. And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, we did Daytona 24. That was my first Daytona 24 that happened in 2021. We drove with Olympus ESPORT, that my good friend's team, and we raced with Lamborghini GT3. And I remember I did the last stint of this race, and we were P4. I did such a nice exit from the last bus stop and overtook the car for P3. And, guys just shout really loud in this car, like, yay, we are P3. That was the best one moment, yeah.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And obviously the 24-hour race is so challenging because it's, not just you that's driving, it's your teammates as well. And with the multi-class, so much can go wrong. What would your advice be for someone who's maybe planning to do their first 24-hour race this year? Have you got any tips or advice for them?
My tip is to try both cars. So you can try LMP2 and GT3, and just like this, you can understand where the LMP2 can overtake the GT3 if you're driving the GT3, and so you can be more predictable on the track. So before I did my endurances in multi-class, I drove both cars, like LMP2 and then GT3, and so you got just a view from 2 points, and this is really helpful.
That's a really good piece of advice, actually. I didn't think of that. But yeah, you see all the clips on social media of people getting crashed into or crashing into other people. And you're right. If you go into the other class of car, you can learn where they can brake, how late they can brake, and it helps you kind of plan, right? Would that be fair?
Yeah, for sure. So you can plan, you can predict other cars on track. You can, like, if you're GT3, you can move, and just be predictable and someone can send in last moment and you will expect this.
No, definitely, definitely. And so the question that I've also been asking to everybody in these interviews is, what is your worst memory about sim racing? So, for example, with Camille, he spoke about he was competing at a LAN tournament and the PC crashed. I remember there's been a couple of league races where I've run out of fuel just before the finish line, which is always really not good. But tell me, what's the one memory that you have about sim racing that you wish you could change?
Well, I got a bad memory about sim racing that happened in a racing. I raced USF 2000, and 2 or 3 people, they tried to, hound me in the sessions and crash me on purpose. That was horrible. But a good thing about this that that was really stressful for me. But right now I'm just not paying any attention to such kind of things in some racing.
Amazing. Yeah, no, definitely. I think any public lobbies as well, right? It's always really dangerous when you're racing online with people and stuff like that. But no, I completely agree. It's never easy when people kind of crash into you. So the other thing I want to ask about, obviously, you're a female in sim racing, a woman in sim racing. It's obviously an environment which is becoming. We're seeing more initiatives. Obviously, the Thrustmaster rocket's been a good example. Have you got any advice for women who are also looking to get into sim racing about how they can maybe, find other people to race with or other communities, anything like this?
Well, I think if they will come to our racing, they anyway will find a good community, and just don't be afraid that this is like a men's sport. Yes, so you just have to do what you like to do, and if you want to race in some racing, why not? So you can give it a go.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's great, and I think it's amazing to see. There's some really really talented, female sim racers out there, yourself included, and I think it's so nice that this is a hobby and a career for a lot of people. That there's no barriers to entry, which is really really nice. So kind of moving on to that then. Obviously, we're both involved with Thrustmaster. Is kind of the reason we're having this interview as well. A question that I get asked a lot, but I'm sure you're probably the same, is how did you start your journey with Thrustmaster and how did that come about?
Well, I just worked in the racing industry, and I really like Thrustmaster as a brand, and I really like their equipment. Um, and I decided to email Thrustmaster support that I'm streaming, that I'm content creator and racing driver, and maybe we can start our way into racing together. So they replied to me, and I met Eric, and we started our partnership in Thrustmaster, and I'm so happy with it.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah. For people who don't know, so Eric is the I can't remember his official job title, but he's basically the big boss on the esports side for sim racing, and a really really amazing guy. A very similar story to yourself, to be honest. I sent an email off and met with him a couple of times, and slowly developed that relationship. What would be your advice then? I guess, like I said, it's a question I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you get it as well. If someone is wanting to get sponsored by, one of these big brands, what their advice would be. For example, for me, it's obviously really important that your race results are quite competitive. It's important that you're performing well. But I imagine maybe you have some other advice, with your background in racing and content creation.
I think it's really important to show good results, and together with improving your social media, so you can do great Instagram, you can start your YouTube channel, you can start to stream, and it's always good to show yourself to the community, and I'm sure you can find some people who is going to like you, who's going to support you. So racing is quite big, and other gaming is big too. So I think that everybody will have their place and their own community.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's such a great answer. And, I'm really curious. Obviously, you've got an amazing setup there. We can see some of it in the background is very, very impressive. But obviously, everything you do has kind of a purpose, I suppose, when you're creating content and kind of streaming and stuff like that. If someone is a sim racer, maybe they're already, racing in leagues or this kind of stuff. Have you got any advice to them about what makes good content and how to make good content?
I think you have to pay attention to the quality, uh, the video, and you have to be sure that your PC is not lagging, that everything is working fine. Also, sound is a really important thing in streaming and in video as well. Good thing that we got a lot of guides on YouTube, how to create videos, how to do the color correction, how to do the editing, and how to set up the mic and everything. So just have to use this tools which we got on YouTube and go ahead with it.
Amazing, amazing. No, I think that's great advice. So another question about your real life racing. Obviously, you've had an opportunity to race wheel to wheel and competitively with people. You know, really have some great battles and overtakes. Do you find that people are more competitive or more dangerous online than they are in real life, or do you think the overtakes are just as dangerous between the two?
I think they're quite the same because we can meet people from in real life. They race and I racing as well. Yes. So the most dangerous for me, this is karting. I think open wheelers a bit dangerous too. But GT3 is quite patient and nice from time to time, of course. So yeah, I think that kind of equal. So in real life, it's not that competitive as in sim racing. So maybe people in sim racing can notice more crashes. That's happening just because we got more closer, gaps to each other, and that's why it's happening. Because little mistake from car ahead of you can cause a crash, and you just got no time to escape from it. So it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I was watching some streams when iRacing first brought out the new Mercedes Formula car, and just seeing some of the crashes on there from people. They were spinning off, hitting each other. Was really quite something. For someone who maybe is racing in GT3s on iRacing, for example, but wants to try out the open wheel and Formula style stuff, have you got any advice for differences in driving technique that you notice between the two types of car?
The main thing is in GT3s we got ABS system, and in open wheelers we don't have this. So you have to brake really hardly first, and then release the brakes fast as soon as you steer to the corner. Also in open wheeler we got more downforce than GT3s. So you have to rely on this. Like you can slow down car because it's slowed down by the downforce. Um, and no traction here as well. You have to pay more attention to that. So be sure that when you steer out of the corner, you're straight with a wheel when you return back to the throttle.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I think there's some great advice there, and I think that leads nicely into my next question, which is about equipment. Now, obviously, again, we're here with Thrustmaster, but I speak to a lot of people, and some people say that equipment doesn't matter. I think equipment does make some difference, more so if you've got good pedals versus not so good pedals. I think in the steering wheel, it maybe doesn't make too much of a difference. But what's your opinion? Do you think that equipment makes you faster?
I think that it makes you faster. It makes you more confident. The biggest improvement for me that was triple screen when I upgrade from single screen, so I could predict. I could race better. So my racecraft just improved with it. And also pedals. I think pedals the most important thing. So you can have a like T300 wheel, but you should have low tilt pedals because you can control the braking better like this. And also I get grips for TLCM pedals, and they're amazing. I love them. So I got good control of the pedals right now because I got better grip with my foot. So that's perfect.
Oh, that's really cool. It's a great idea. I think it's always interesting talking to people and seeing the different tweaks they make to their setup. Some people it's maybe harder springs, like you said, maybe it's the grips, or some people use gloves for their steering wheel. This kind of stuff. It's all very interesting. But I think you're right. The pedals are so important, especially with your braking and kind of throttle control as well. It's so important. So with regards to Thrustmaster, and we'll try not make this sound like a sales or marketing type video, but what kind of support do you get from Thrustmaster that maybe people don't realize is part of your agreement and ambassadorship with them?
Well, of course, I got the best equipment, which helped me to achieve my goals in sim racing. And on the other side, I got support from Thrustmaster from dedicated people who's just passionate about sim racing, gaming, and that's truly amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the big thing for me that I didn't realize when I first joined Thrustmaster. Obviously, the equipment's great and makes a big difference. But on the content and social media side, for someone like myself who's maybe not as creative as someone like you, I need a bit of help sometimes with kind of creating content and just being able to kind of work with a team that has such a passion for sim racing and trying to create new content ideas and new activations is always really, really good fun. Is there anything that you feel with Thrustmaster that has helped you on the content front, or do you feel that your content's just as good with or without them?
That's a hard question. Yeah. Well, I think they helped me with with the content because Thrustmaster sending me some equipment and I can make a content of it, and this is amazing. So without Thrustmaster, I couldn't do the review of T818 or T488, yes, for example. So yeah, that's amazing. They helping me to making the content. I'm making the content for Thrustmaster, and everybody's happy.
No, definitely, definitely. And I think you've touched on something important there, which is obviously we're both very lucky that we get the chance to try different equipment and new equipment when it comes out. Obviously, the T818 now the direct drive wheelbase, but going back to the TSPC or the T488 like you mentioned, when you get new equipment, do you notice a difference in wheelbases, and what kind of, if someone's maybe looking to buy equipment, what should they be looking for in terms of feedback and things like this? What would your advice be for them?
I think people should rely on their financials. So if they can go for T248, why not? So if you can start with it, you can go. But for me, if you enter to the sim racing, for me, the best wheel will be Thrustmaster T300. This is like a little direct drive wheelbase for me. So it's not that powerful, but it has a lot of details on feedback, and it's really good. So I highly recommend T300. And of course, if you got financial for T818, so you should try this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting. A lot of people start with either, the T300 or maybe it's the G920 or kind of this type of product. And I think, I guess like we've been saying, right, it's not so important about the wheelbase. Obviously, it helps, but the pedals is really the big difference. So I guess moving towards my sort of final question, obviously you've had a lot of success in real life racing. You've had a lot of success in sim racing as well. But what's the future hold? What are your next steps and what are your ambitions for this year?
For this year, I want to gain 6K I rating in the racing, and I want to finish top 5 in the Porsche Sport Super Cup All-Star Series, which we doing right now. So we're going to have third round on the Saturday at Long Beach Circuit. And also, I'll be happy to return back to real racing, and I would like to do some endurance races, maybe in GT3s, maybe in GT4. So something like that will be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like you're going to be very, very busy this year. Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time. I think it's been great to get to know a bit more about you and your background. Hopefully the people watching have learned a bit more about your experience as well, which is amazing. So, Lyubov, thank you so much for the time today, and thank you for the interview.
Yeah, thank you so much.